another broadcast of The Soul of the EveryMan on the Artist First Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Find them at artistfirst.com. Send us your questions and comments, DJ at artistfirst.com. Out to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, EveryMan. And I am Michael Lyons.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Margaret.
And are you depressed?
Oh, dear.
Or anxious?
Mm.
Well, we are going to address that tonight. We are going to take care of that.
Oh, okay. We'll try.
We will try. But before, I want to do a PSA. Can we do a PSA?
Sure.
I think we could do a PSA. So let's do a quick PSA for Virtual Blue Monday. This is going to be a live advertisement here because Margaret, okay, for longtime fans of the show, this is a little backstory. For longtime fans of the show, you may have noticed it was a slight hiatus in the in the early part of the fall there, where there were several weeks in a row where we had best of the Soul of the Everyman. And the reason for that is Margaret was going to attend a class at a prestigious university where she was taught amazing things and got a what did you get? A certificate. A certificate. I think it was sort of a medal even or something.
I got a sticker.
You got a sticker to put in our sticker book.
That's
but
right.
I want to take 2 or 3 minutes just to say that as an outcome of that, the group that Margaret was studying with is called I Thirst. That's I, a little like a lowercase I, Thirst. And they've been around for a while. They're run by a very wonderful woman by the name of Keaton Douglas, who also happens to be a good friend of ours. And it's a worldwide organization, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is.
But you can find out a lot more about them on their website if you look up I Thirst, and they're all over the place. But I don't want to focus on them as much as that next Monday, this time of year, is oftentimes, it's holidays and it's parties, and a lot of people are very happy about it, but there's a good percentage of people who actually find this time of year a little bit sad.
Well, it's very difficult for a lot of people during this time of year because it usually means that you're going to be involved with your family, and people have gone through many, many things where they may have become estranged from their family, or they may have lost someone that they love dearly
Mm-hmm.
in their family, or they're going through very hard times.
It's just a difficult time.
Really hard times where they may have done things to members of the family, and now there's this schism going on.
Well, all of that, we can go into it a little bit, but so for this time of year, people find this, sometimes find this to be a little bit difficult. Margaret's group is going to be holding what's called a virtual Blue Monday, next Monday, the 22nd. It's at 7 p.m., I believe.
Yes. And
it's on Zoom, which we are on, actually. It's on Zoom, and right now it seems to be gathering quite a lot of steam. We have been putting this out, the word out, for 2 or 3 weeks now, and so there's going to be, I hope, a very good group coming together. And it's a service, Mom. Maybe tell us just 2 or 3 minutes about the service, and then we'll go on to our regularly scheduled show.
Well, the idea in having the virtual Blue Monday, because we all know what Blue Monday feels like. And if you cannot connect up with someone that you love or someone you'd really like to, but circumstances have made it difficult, you're kind of left in an isolated state. So the virtual service that will be taking place on Zoom is a combination of music, reading, some poetry, as well as witnessing. We're going to have a few people on there who are witnessing that there's always hope.
Well, they're talking about their struggles.
There's always hope in the darkness. So it's amazing, truthfully. Amazing stories. And I will be doing a poetry reading in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a poem that Christopher, our son, had loved. So we'll be sharing that on that Monday evening. It's ecumenical. We're having all kinds of different
faiths
coming in.
Yeah. And it just, not to give it too much, but it is going to be just an hour, sort of a commemoration of the season, but also the fact that it's not always all happiness, sweetness, light, and puppies. Sometimes it's heartbreak, and it needs to be witnessed, and it needs to have an outlet. So if you have any interest whatsoever, look up. Can't give the links here, of course, but maybe we'll post one on our website, or certainly you can look up I Thirst, and there's a landing page for that for the virtual Blue Monday.
I believe it's ithirst.org.
ithirst.org, O-R-G. So that's what we just wanted to kind of give that word out.
If you go to that page, there will be a place where you can read about the service as well as a connect to the Zoom meeting on that Monday. So it's Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right. It's words going out, and it is worldwide.
Right.
So, well,
there it is.
With that.
So, if you are depressed, that's a good outlet there. But we're going to talk a little bit tonight about a wonderful quote. Maybe we'll lead back, sort of lead ourselves back in with the quote from a gentleman by the name of Lao Tzu, who I believe is famous for the I Ching. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, the I Ching. Yeah, he wrote that book. The Tao.
The Tao. The Tao of Lao.
Lao Tzu, yes.
Lao Tzu. So would you like to lead off with the quote when you have a momento?
Sure.
Okay, let's go with that.
If you are depressed, you live in the past. If you are anxious, you live in the future. But if you are at peace, you live in the present. Lao Tzu.
Lao Tzu. And I think that those are very wise words, even in the context of what we just talked about with the virtual Blue Monday, because a lot of what people suffer through at this time of year is really a bit of living in the past. And it's difficult, when, especially I believe around the holidays, when you mention your maybe seeing family and all the associations, that kind of drags you. Oftentimes people have experiences, let's say, with their families that kind of drag them or tie them or anchor them to events in the past. A lot of your relationship with your family has taken place over a fairly long period of time. Some people their whole lives. You grow up in a family and you've been part of that and part of all of the ups and downs and ins and outs and fights and whatever as part of a family. And so what you have with these people is history, okay? And it can be, even if you yourself, let's talk about just for a moment that you yourself are not inclined to drama or to living or dwelling in the past. When you're interacting with your family, it can be very challenging because you will be expected to adhere to, in many ways, your family's idea of who you are. You may have noticed this over the years, is that sometimes fix in your mind, or you have your own identity fixed for you by people in your family. They know you as, Johnny, little Johnny who did this 15 years ago or 40 years ago. They'll bring up incidents from your past, or they'll try to fit you back. And this is really more of it. It's more for their comfort, right? They're trying to fit you back into the comfortable box that they knew you in. And oftentimes it's sort of unconscious behavior, and it's not meant to necessarily offend or to even to injure you, or to in any way, it really, they're doing it unconsciously and for their own, almost for their own benefit. For their own benefit, they're trying to put you into a box that they feel is where you belong in their world. And this can create tension, And so you can be dragged, even if you yourself are not someone who lives in the past. You can be dragged into the past, and people oftentimes, when being put into a situation like that, sort of dread it. So you can be anxious about having to go to Uncle John's house for the holidays, right? So you can be dragged in both directions sort of at the same time. You're like, oh, well, he's always going to do this, and he's going to do that, and he's going to bring up this, and he's going to do that, or they're going to say this about me, and I have to think about that, and I can't mention this. And so you have all that sort of dredging up from the past, and maybe all the anticipation of what may or may not be said or not said in the future. And with all the hustle and bustle of this time of year, you can feel like you're being pulled in lots of different directions, and certainly you're being pulled away from now. You're being pulled away from the present moment, and you're as maybe we were just at a service the other day, and we were talking about how people are being pulled away from peace. Your peace is a very precious commodity at this time of year, because you're being pulled in every which way direction, not only by these kind of tensions, but just by the hustle and bustle of trying to get everything done, perhaps, that you have to get done. So there's all that. And Lao Tzu is advising us to, very much as Tolle would much later, to be now, to be here.
Right. Being present. It's just that when you're trying to juggle quite a few things, you get involved with all the minutia, your attention gets pulled in many different directions, especially if you have family or children. Oh my goodness. Because children don't know how to wait, and they want it immediately. Not to say that there aren't adults who don't know how to wait as well.
Yeah, there definitely are.
So you kind of like, all right, what do I do with you? And you have to make space. Maybe that's the best way to put it, for yourself. You have to be aware of the fact that the term is spreading yourself thin, where you have trouble concentrating and in getting a particular task done. Just stillness itself is a refuge. And to hold stillness within yourself allows for, what would be the word? It grounds you so that you can actually look up and around instead of focused completely in, the getting all these little tasks done. You can look and see the broad picture, the broad field. And when you do that, things fall into place. What needs to get done now? What can wait? What had you not noticed because it wasn't making any noise, but really needs to be attended to? It's just many things that you wind up being involved with. And the stillness is what you need to be able to acknowledge your own internal state and whether or not that's peaceful. Because that's what you see. It's not peaceful. People are having a lot of trouble maintaining their own wholeness of heart.
And a lot of it is, of course, if we move away from sort of Lao Tzu directly, but it's the sentiment, which you can find a lot of this in Tolle, is that the past, which he often refers to as the pain body, tries to both serve as your identity, as well as to drag your attention away from the present moment to the past or to it. Let's if you start to look at consciousness as the present moment, your being in the present moment is your consciousness, your awareness. But the things that Margaret just talked about, all the hustle and bustle and all of the many little tasks that are given to you to do, can start to cloud the present moment. So well, you have to do this now, and you remember you have this due, and you have a meeting, and you have 5 gifts to get, and blah, blah, blah. So all these things come up, and they start to churn your present moment peace. And then sometimes what will happen is things will trigger and divert your attention to an event in the past. Now, again, we're talking about sort of an unconscious behavior now. This is someone who's just the average person in a stressful situation, which is what the holidays often are for people. And in the non-mindfulness of the hustle and bustle, you're vulnerable to being triggered both into a fearful, sort of anxious state, or and this is, I think, the I would say is the greater danger, because it's both of them are just as damaging to your present moment of now and your peace. But in many ways, the pain body, which I would say primarily is something focused on the past, is triggered by events that are by stressful events in the present. And it diverts your attention sometimes viscerally and sort of instantaneously, almost in a sort of a stultifying, almost paralyzing way. You can be yanked back into a situation where you were traumatized, or a situation where you felt you were terribly injured, or other types of and there are these, we oftentimes refer to them as sort of these fragments of personality that have been left in the past, and they have a couple of different sort of unique characteristics about these fragments. They very tightly bind a stressful or an injurious or a damaging situation. So they've got their own body to them. They've got a sort of an intact sort of they as fragments, they are really you, and they are really sort of locked into this, whatever the situation was. You can think of a million of them on your own. But something in the present moment, perhaps a little bit of stressful thing, or something which is happening right now, a challenge of some sort of springs you back almost in an instant, and opens up this sort of Pandora's box of a situation that is far in the past. And with it comes back all of these feelings, the feelings of perhaps anger, or of helplessness, or of terror, or anything else that kind of bound this thing. If you have very severe cases of this, you would refer to as sort of PTSD. But anybody who's experienced sort of a I wouldn't say it necessarily needs to be trauma, but it's sort of a life-altering situation, something that really, really scared you, or really angered you, or really put you into a very into a very helpless place, let's say. If you encapsulate that and make it into a fragment and leave it behind, you can be yanked back there. And you find yourself saying things that you said or feeling things that you felt, and it can have this almost eidetic, this sort of living it again kind of feeling. And that can, in essence, steal your complete presence and awareness from the present moment, and in essence, transport you in an instant to the past and make you kind of relive this terrible situation, and sometimes you can then act it out in the present, which turns you into this raving lunatic because everyone around you doesn't see what triggered you into this.
Right.
And it can cause damage to your peace, certainly, but damage to the present moment, such that you reinforce this fragment. You give it all your energy. You give it all of your attention. You give it an infusion of energy. Give it more power over you, and actually make it easier for it to trigger and trigger again. It can become sort of a lot of what Margaret was studying was actually having to do with addiction and other types of damaging life situations that can lead to addiction or become associated with addiction. So this sort of physical dependence can also come with a lot of psychological pain body type of associations. And one thing that can trigger you in the present moment can bring you right back to that past moment, and then perhaps even, in the case of an addict, start you on a path of self-destructive behavior, like sliding back into abuse of some type, of abuse of a particular drug or a particular whatever it may be. So it can be very dangerous. I think that the triggers that bring you into the past, I think, are in many ways more dangerous than the ones that drag you into the future.
It depends on how you are responding to your environment. If you're unconscious, then it's almost it's an automatic. You go into reaction as opposed to response, conscious response. And many, many people do that. They don't take time to examine their own motivation on why they feel a certain way, or why am I reacting this way. And to be aware of the reaction is usually the first step in realizing that, I don't want to just go into this anger mode whenever I see this happen, or this upsets me or displeases me. And then, poof, you're in that reaction. What a lot of people don't understand is when you get triggered like that, the only thing you're focusing on is yourself. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. Suddenly you're triggered and it just doesn't matter. You become useless in that situation because all you're doing is
sort of a replay, if you will.
You're caught in the reaction. For instance, I do remember one time we brought Christopher home, and there was other people there visiting, and Chris, of course, was fighting his cancer. The other couple that had been there they had also lost a child. But there was a lot of conflict in the family from that. The husband basically blamed the wife for the loss of the child, like he had nothing to do with it.
Mm.
Not going into it, but that was the overall sense. And when Chris came home and he saw that he was sick, his immediate reaction was, "Oh, he's sick? Oh, he should..." He went into, like, "How dare you bring that sick child here?" And you're like, "Who are you? You're the visitor. How dare you bring this sick child anywhere near me?" Because suddenly he's reliving the fact that they lost a child who had been sick. And it was just like, I don't have time to deal with you. I didn't say anything nasty, but I just looked at him like, and I had to guide my son, protect my son away from that response of, it was vitreous. It was just like, how dare you come near me? It's like, this is a sick child. You should hold your tongue and walk away and do not share your poison with us because we're dealing with our situation. You still haven't dealt with your situation. I'll pray for you, but I have no time for you. So I brought him in and basically helped Chris get through whatever. He just looked at this man like,
Right. Chris actually didn't really care.
No. We had a hard day that day, and it was like, I don't have time to waste on you. See, that's that understanding that every day you only have so much energy for time and attention, and you have to choose consciously where you're going to place your time and attention. And it wasn't with that. That was this man's own problem. We're trying to live life as we are. And you make that choice every single time. There are no small decisions because every moment will take up some energy. So, like, going back to the quote that we were talking about, it's understanding that it takes a lot of energy to live in general. And what is the quality that you are trying to embody, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would say, what you said is exactly right. Once you become aware, okay, so let's go back a little bit. Through the experience of having our focus become very sharp, suffering will sharpen your focus. A life-altering event, a life-changing event, like a fatal or potentially fatal disease, will change your focus. It completely destroys your current world, your fantasy world.
Well, what you think your world should be.
Right. And then you come into, if you survive that, if you find yourself able to center and get out of the maelstrom of that, because sometimes people get lost in that for a very, very long time. And nothing against that. It's very difficult. But if you come out of that, you come to the awareness that Margaret just said, is that you realize that your time, your present now, is incredibly precious, as well as not to be squandered, not to be wasted. And you get very discerning. You get very discerning about what is worth your attention, what is worth your time, because the very hard fought for and hard won peace of being in the present moment, that knowing that tomorrow is not to be worried about because it's not guaranteed and it's unknown. And the past is not to be reveled in or encouraged because that is immutable. You can't do anything about what has happened. You can only talk about what's happening now. And so this very hard one focus on now, which is difficult to get to, but once you understand it, once you've gotten a measure of that, you start to see that someone who comes into your now and wants to drag you, as we were talking about before, drag you into their past where they're comfortable and where they want you to play their game. He wanted us to play his game of, well, how dare you do this and how dare, and weren't you thinking about me? Well, no.
Well,
but even more than that, you realize that it's not, and this is sort of can sound cold, but it's correct. It's not worth your peace. It's not worth your current peace to inflate the pain body or the ego needs of the other. The other wants you. This particular person is coming into your now, bringing you a whole bucket load of their past.
Right.
And they want you to jump in and swim around in it with them and entertain them. They want you to entertain their current fantasy of what is important. And, you can, and you know that you have a choice. And this is the point that Margaret just made, is that you realize through this very hard-won fight to regain your presence in the moment of now, because it's really all you have. You come to there through great trial, and you've reached this point. It's not necessarily that you stay there. You go further, much, much further. But once you've reached even this point, you realize that your moment now is very precious. And you don't have time. You don't have time to entertain the fantasies of the person who's come to you with all the anxiousness about the future, which can happen, or with all the the crazy town about the past, which they're bringing to you in this giant steaming bucket of look at me and jump into my bucket of goo.
Yeah, don't you see what you've done to me?
Right.
And
very selfish.
Yeah, and you just sit and you go, I don't have time for you. You don't have time for you. And when you examine that, you have to realize that trigger was looking for somebody to engage in this very low, destructive frequency and feed the pain body, feed that piece of him that wants to be justified, because you're feeding the pain body at that point. And when you realize that what's going on, you also realize that this is your life path. It's not mine. I need not engage in you. I've got to go this way. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to leave you to your family, your wife, who knows what you're saying and doing. And you guys have got to work that out. You can't scattershot your response to everybody to try to make it so that you're the only important person here. You're not.
We also saw this, if you recall, many other situations, but one comes to mind, was after Chris passed, and people came to us to help, or to, with their version of how much this affected them, how sad it made them, and with the unconscious desire to have you entertain their, have you, the bereaved, the actual person who had the loss, entertain their fantasy of helping, of
They wanted to feel good about themselves.
Exactly.
And that's the start of the crazy.
They wanted to feel good about themselves. They wanted you to comfort them. That's what I was saying.
But that's exactly it. People don't realize that they say that, we want to be compassionate. We can learn how to be compassionate. And I had gotten to the point where I could not explain to them that to be compassionate means that you got to suffer along with us.
Mm.
And there was no way you were going to do that.
Right. They thought they were being compassionate, but they wanted to be entertained.
And well, patted and saying, "Oh, what a good boy am I! Look how beneficent I am. My soul is so enlightened that I can step over down here and just help these poor people." Yeah. And you're just like, okay, anyone else hear violins? I hear violins.
But at that point, the journey that we had gone on with Christopher had brought us to a place that very few people go to, and you get through that too, and you go even further along. But in that place, the clarity of discernment was so glaringly bright, so precise, so fine, that when people came to you with their well-meaning but fantastical sort of impressions about how they were going to help you or how they were going to comfort you and all, and they had no capacity to actually understand what they were even doing, and you find yourself either having some sort of charity for them, but in essence, again, they're trying to drag you into their comfortable little box. And oftentimes, and I see other reflections of that in current times. You see where these terribly bereaved people are having to put up with, in essence, what looks like help, but it becomes, in essence, a kind of an attack. And that attack is to drag them from their present moment of now, which holds tremendous pain and grief, but very bright clarity. You know who you are, and you know why you're here. Back into the fantasy, back into the feed me, justify me. Let me feel good about myself by how much concern you're giving me. And it's a very insidious thing, but it's also something which you can, again, look at. If you've got a little bit past that, you can look at it with some sort of clarity and charity and say, I know why you're doing this. And I know that this is your egoic pain body, or your egoic, truly just ego, that needs to be fed. And you can kind of guide it away, almost like somebody with Tai Chi, or with martial arts. You take this attack and you kind of, just kind of turn it about and away from you and towards itself, because you can see these things. You get a tremendous discernment. You
redirect the momentum of the moment.
Redirect, yes, of the moment, exactly.
You redirect the momentum of the moment, and that kind of an awareness only comes from a still point center of peacefulness and a groundedness. And you're able to see without any reaction to what's unfolding. Even they could actually be verbally attacking you, and it doesn't faze you. You're so grounded that you realize that, well, that's the spin they're doing. So if I just redirect it a little bit, he's going to spin off into that direction, and he's not going to hurt anybody if he goes over there. All right, let's do that.
I mean, it's really, if you look at Lao Tzu's quote, but if you are at peace, you live in the present. But it's even more than that. You, as you just said, you're at the fixed center. You are grounded in the moment of now, and you are immovable, like a martial artist who's being attacked. Your immovability, your space, your groundedness and center is so strong and so discerning that you see the attack coming from a million miles off. And it's like Neo in the Matrix. You can just, without even looking, you're blocking everything. You're stopping all the bullets. The reason is because in the movie it's silly, but in truth, your centeredness, your groundedness, your peace is also your immovable, immutable shield against these sort of egoic forms which come at you, and they're not doing it on purpose. It can feel like they're doing it on purpose, but if you're truly grounded, you see that it's the monk, the is that so monk that you know what I mean?
What you are observing is how the mind has been programmed to react certain ways according to culture or tradition or perceived, like in a relationship, this is the way it should be. So
these are the rules.
Right. So suddenly it's not going that way. So therefore, that means that I can verbally attack you, lambaste you for your foolishness and for your inconsideration. I'm offended.
You're not taking my feelings into account.
Right. And you begin to realize at that point that it doesn't really touch you.
Right.
You don't need to receive any of it, even if they're aiming at you. You don't need to receive it. And truly, does their opinion of you matter? I mean, ask yourself that. There are many of us who respond because you realize you're trying to be generous and
gentle,
nice, trying to be nice, be nice. But you realize that they really have they don't take what you say into account as valuable. Anything you say is not considered valuable by them. They are looking for a target. And the more you may respond to them, it feels like you're getting a bigger target painted on you.
Well, and they're looking to be fed, right?
Yeah.
Target, and as well as a mark, an energy input, a hit.
Well, it's just they want to engage, and if they get the smallest bit of feedback where it's going in the direction they want, they'll grab onto it. But you don't need to receive it at all.
Oh.
What is that phrase when we were little, you're arguing with your brother or sister? I'm rubber and you're glue. What you say bounces off me and sticks on you.
Yes.
Yes. I mean,
I haven't thought of that in a while, but yes, that is the phrase.
And you think about it, well, children do have their arguments.
Yes.
And they do wind up solving them.
It's somewhat profound if you think of it that way, because that sentiment is quite a centered, present sentiment. I'm rubber and you're glue, because in essence you're not taking in.
No,
you're not accepting these hurled missiles. These words are hurled at you, like missiles, and they're supposed to stick on you, and they're supposed to make you react.
Right.
And it usually drives. Okay, the interesting thing about it is it usually drives the person who's attacking crazy. No, I'm not.
No, I'm rubber and you're glue. No, I said it first.
I said it first, so that means you can't say it, because I've already called.
How many arguments have we had with adults
Yes.
come down to that?
Yeah,
It's
pretty
so
much.
serious, actually, when you think about it. And that actually helps me when an adult starts going off like that. I just imagine them as a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time not laughing. Because they're like, you're not taking me seriously. And it's like, I can't. I just can't.
So let's back up a little bit. So what we just described is Lao Tzu's answer to the world trying to, to the egoic tendency, the unconscious tendency of the world, and of you. You are the world in the sense that your consciousness, the universe plays out within your consciousness, not the other way around. You're not part of the universe is part of you. And so all the universe dwells within your consciousness. It's the only place it can be. It dwells within everybody's consciousness. You're not special. But if you are depressed and you're living in the past and you're living with these egoic fragments of you, because you can fragment yourself, and sometimes it's a defensive mechanism if you're being terribly wounded, injured, traumatized. There's a defensive mechanism to encapsulate that.
Right.
But that does not make it go away. In fact, it makes it into sort of a time bomb, and in fragmenting yourself, you give away energy. You give away, one of the things people say is that when you forgive somebody, you're getting yourself back, because what you're doing is not making what they did right, but what you're doing is removing your attention to it, the hold it has on your present, your joy, your peace. So you forgive, and you get back your joy and your peace and your present, because you no longer hold and energize that fragment. You dissolve it, you reintegrate it, you drag it away from this feeding egoic monster that doesn't exist anymore except as this sort of mental entity.
Right.
So you take it back, and you drag your fragments or your energy out of the past. You bring it to the present. You have your present moment. You see clarity that this happened, but it is not happening. And then the other side, we haven't talked that much about it, but the other side can be paralyzing and debilitating and steal all of your present moment in focusing upon the future, which is unknown, but it can intrude, because so the past is often about emotion. The future is often about mental exercises, about what if this and what if that, and this could happen and that could happen, and what if these things, and I prepared for this, and I bought 17 insurances, and this and that, and the other. Oh, and worry means I love you more. So this is the worry, the anxious, the constant living in the future paralyzes the present. It makes it so that you can't make a decision without, let me stop for a moment and overthink this. That's a funny phrase, but if you live there, then your present moment doesn't exist. It's continually dragged into the future about, well, what if this and what if that, and I have to think this through, and everything stopped while I think this through. Well, that doesn't happen. Only in your fantasy mind that you can stop things.
Right.
If you're in a cancer ward and they say to you, you've got to make a decision, you can't stop the world.
Right.
You can't. You'd love to. You'd like to say, wait a minute, I would like to take a year to think about this. No, I'm sorry. You need to decide right now. So the clarity of the present moment is that you have to say to yourself internally, what path feels right? What has heart? What has soul? What needs to be? Make the decision and be at peace, because you make a decision not with the expectation that you're right or wrong, or that you're guaranteeing a particular outcome or a particular result. You make the decision with heart and with peace and without expectation of outcome, and with realizing that everything you do, regardless of what you do and what you know, is imperfect. And you have to allow for the randomness of the universe. You say, here's what I think we need to do now. And you say, that's it. And whatever result happens, you don't say to yourself, oh, if this, and oh, if that, and oh, if only if I had another year to think about it. No. so the future can completely rob the present. People spend their whole lives not wanting to be where they are, but wanting to be somewhere else. Oh, in 10 years I'll be here, and in 15 years I'll get this, and if only I do these things, then I'll have $5 million by the time I'm 45. Or spend their whole lives ignoring the present moment, so that their children grow up fatherless and motherless. So that there is no joy that is not completely robbed by, but something else. What you're spending this money on now, you could save it for this and do that. People like this. They spend their whole lives worrying about tomorrow, and they never live today. They spend their whole lives not wanting to be where they are, but wanting to be somewhere else in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, or 2 months, or 5 days.
Yeah.
And they're in a constant. If you go and meet with these people, there's a fine wine. And it's not Chablis. It's these mental machinations that you can hear from 5 feet off about how their mind is spinning about what's going to happen and what might happen and what could happen. And if you even for the moment engage them, hi, how's it doing? Oh, it's going to be terrible later, and things are going to happen tomorrow, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and I know this and these politics, and the world is terrible. Won't you panic with me? And you go, well, it seems okay. No, you don't understand. In 10 more minutes, the world's going to end. And you can't be around these people. They're just as bad in some ways, even more, even less joyful. The past will sometimes allow you a little bit of joy. You can remember, well, that was such a lovely day. I want to live there forever. But the future has nothing to offer you, because you can never be certain about it. So that if you allow the anxiousness, the mental spin, the constantly second guessing, the let me overthink this, if you allow that to take over your peace, you see these people and you realize that they never have a moment's rest. That their sleep, they spend the night walking the floor, as the saying goes, instead of having even a moment's rest, because nothing is ever in the present moment. Nothing exists. It's always in the future.
Right.
And that's in some ways worse.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. And your ability to be able to see a pathway out. In other words, you're able to begin to take a step in a different direction. Because when you go back to Lao Tzu's saying, being trapped in the past brings that depression. That's a cage, because everywhere you look, you feel like you can't escape. I'm in this, there's nothing I can do.
Mm-hmm.
If you constantly are thinking of the future, also with fear as your base, it's another trap. And there is no energy for you to begin to take a step in another direction. You have to be at a point where you've had enough.
Mm.
I've had enough depression now, and I've had enough
Worry.
Yeah, anxiousness or worry. I've had enough worry, which is, again, fear.
Mm-hmm. People will argue with you. Say, I'm not fearful, I'm worrying. That's different. You're like, not so much.
It's still fear. And the fact that it's been translated in your head
mm-hmm.
to mean that you love somebody if you worry enough about them. I can't help myself. This is how I worry. It's like, this is how I show my love. I'm worrying about you. Why is it always about you?
Exactly.
if you're expressing love, love is to be given. Love always gives. So what are you giving? You're giving fear
and control in many ways.
Well, so don't do that because you're making me afraid.
Right.
Don't go over there. I'm afraid for you. Right. I'm afraid for you.
Right. And don't make me afraid is a terrible form of control.
Yes.
It's also, you can do the same. Relationships can be ruled by the expression of pain body and depression and past pain, and they can be ruled by the expression of worry and fear and anxiety and saying, don't you know how much that'll make me afraid? So you have to stop and make me not afraid.
Well, yeah, you're the one who's causing my anxiety. I love that one.
But Lao Tzu and living at peace and in the present is the cure for both of those things.
Right. And we have reached the end of our hour.
It's the present moment.
We are in the present moment. So I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.